You are listening to the Signature Books podcast. Signature Books is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network. You can support this podcast and others in our network by subscribing at dialoguejournal.com.
She's so dramatic. And it's true, by the way, the morning that the book came out, we finally got snow. Governor Cox tells us to pray for rain and snow, but I put in the work.
Welcome so much. Is this working?
That working?
Yes.
Sorry, you have to hear my voice now. Sorry we're starting a little late, but people at the Brandy Carlisle concert got word that Eli was here. Yeah. And so they left and are coming over here. So we had to wait, to let them to come. Eli, welcome.
Thank you.
And congrats on the book.
Thank you. Dave is my editor at the Tribune, and he taught me very early on that I am not allowed to swear in the newspaper, and I'm mad about it every day.
And believe me, Robert Kirby tested me in every single column. Okay, it was just, well, Eli, we're going to have a conversation. I'll ask a few questions, but we certainly want to hear from you too, because we know you have questions you want to ask Eli. I think one of the first things almost everyone wants to know is, Eli, are your and Skylar's parents here tonight, and where are they?
They are. You guys raise your hands. Raise your hands. Okay. Mine are shy. Skylar's parents live in Vancouver, Washington, and they like to come and visit us. I'm doing us. We have a child. They like to come visit him. And so they tell us, if there's ever a party happening, let us know, and then we'll plan our trip around that. So these are my party in-laws.
And not for Brandy Carlisle. So, okay, and I think everyone always wants to know, because I always wonder about this, being a parent and grandparent. Do they ever say, how dare you write that about us?
Oh, it's a great question. So my mother-in-law took a great objection once. I wrote in one of the columns, and it's in the book, that when my baby was 3 months old, I walked into her living room, we were visiting them, and she was showing my 3-month-old child Die Hard. It was Christmas Eve. And I wrote about this in the column, and I had misremembered. I'm sorry, Kim. You're now going to get your credit. I had misremembered, and I said that when I objected to her showing him Die Hard, that she said something along the lines of, well, he's going to have to see it sometime. When the column came out, she called me very angrily, and she said, my joke was funnier. That is not what I said. She said, I told you, it's a Christmas movie. She's right, that is funny.
Okay, now what about Skylar, though? Do you warn him in advance, and does he have any veto power?
He has no veto power. When Peggy Fletcher Stack initially asked me if I wanted to write for the Tribune, I went home and I said, I think I have a column in the Tribune now. And Skylar initially, the first thing he said was, do you even have time for that? And I said, no. And then he said, you cannot write about me without my permission. And I said, oh, absolutely. And then I've done it for 3 years without his permission.
And by the way, Peggy apologizes. She's in Arizona visiting her sister. She would be here tonight, okay? She definitely didn't want to miss this, but
she planned a vacation around this.
By the way, I'm missing my tennis night because of this.
I'm so sorry, everybody. Brandy Carlisle and tennis. I ruined everyone's evening.
Okay. I want to dive into a little bit about what you write about, okay? And you write about Mormon culture, or Latter-day Saint culture, for those who don't want to do Satan's work. What have you learned about your own Mormon culture that you grew up in after you married him?
Oh boy. I assume you were referring to Skylar, not my other husbands. I think one of the most interesting things about having Skylar move here and experience Mormon culture and Utah culture is I have been able to sort of watch somebody enter this very bizarre place without baggage. And some of the things that I find annoying, he finds sweet. And some of the things that I find just completely boring to talk about, he finds so baffling. There was a few years ago, we watched that documentary about Mark Hoffman, and they were talking about the salamander letter, if you know, you know. And I was trying to explain to Skylar, I said, isn't it so bizarre that this guy convinced people that a salamander, had visited Joseph Smith and given him all this instruction? And Skylar just looked at me and he said, but is that weirder than any of the rest of religion? And it was one of these things where it's like, well, I've grown up hearing, certain stories around religion, around the Bible, around the Book of Mormon, around Mormonism, and he didn't grow up hearing those things, so all of it sounds like equally strange to him, but in some ways really, really delightful.
Gold plates, no problem.
Yeah.
You can have, but
yeah.
Salamander.
Yeah, the salamander was where I was like, now that's bizarre.
Okay, and one of my favorite columns, and by the way, Eli has won the Best Humor Columnist in the West 3 years in a row. One of the columns that judges point to in one of the first ones was the phrase you'd heard going up, the Holy Ghost goes to bed at midnight. Yeah. Do you remember that column? Okay, talk about that.
I grew up, and did anybody else grow up hearing this? The Holy Ghost goes to bed at midnight? So we were told by the parents of our neighborhood, and at church, the Holy Ghost goes to bed at midnight, so you don't need to be out later than that. That was kind of like the justification for curfew. And one day, Skylar, when he moved to Utah, some of his friends started feeding him phrases to say, like, go say this to Eli, just out of it. And he came home one day and he said, what does it mean that this sacred spirit goes to, he disputes the wording on this, but my memory is he said something like, what does it mean that like the sacred ghost or the sacred spirit goes to bed at 10 o'clock? And I said, first of all, it's called the Holy Ghost and it goes to bed at midnight, so whoever told you this one lied. And so, I said, well, okay, I explained to him the origin of the phrase and why people say it, and he was just so baffled by every concept wrapped up in this. And first of all, he was like, so what is the Holy Ghost? Like, so does it haunt people? And it was like, no, it just follows them around and whispers things. And sometimes it dwells inside of them. And he said, that sounds like a haunting and maybe even a possession. So it was one of the many examples of him just like hearing a phrase as a fully formed adult that I've just always been like, yeah, that's a normal thing people say. That once I was trying to explain it to him and just watching this confusion on his face, I was like, oh, I grew up strange. Yeah.
I think that's what's interesting is it's kind of a window to our culture here in Utah, especially. I often wondered, though, with daylight saving, if the Holy Ghost sets a clock.
Yeah.
Different in Indiana.
Yeah, definitely. Stays up a little later, has a hard time waking up for a while, has to readjust.
I've had you tell this story a couple times, so we don't need to tell tonight, but it's interesting. Tell people who may not know where your first date was with Skylar.
My first date with my gay husband was at the Kirtland Temple. We took a tour of the Kirtland Temple for our first date. That was not planned, but I met him, and literally 12 hours later, we were on a tour of the Kirtland Temple.
So, how have readers responded to your columns? What positive and what negative feedback have you heard?
Well, it's always for the same columns. I am often told that I am too critical of the church and that I'm an apologist for the church for like the exact same sentence.
Welcome to the Tribune.
Yeah. By and large, though, I've just had a lot of support from many people in this room as well. It's been fun and interesting to hear people sort of digest their own understanding of the culture that we live in through the stories that I'm sharing, and a lot of people have very similar stories to the ones that I'm sharing. We had a review of the book that came in through X96 the other day. Somebody emailed in, and they read this email online, and this guy said, I listened to Eli's audiobook, and we're the same age, and it made me realize that I often don't appreciate the adults from my childhood who were trying to create something magical around me in our wards or, in our Sunday school or whatever else. And I was really happy to hear that was somebody's response, because ultimately my goal in writing these columns is to build community and try to, as Troy kind of talked about, seek understanding.
So a column you wrote actually elicited something that's very rare. A politician apologizing?
Kind of.
It would be really rare for some politicians, but Mitt Romney. Talk about
He's so mad at me, and I didn't even do what he said I did. So, okay, how much time do you have? I wrote a column several months ago, and it was about how when I was a child, people would spread rumors about celebrities being Mormons. Yes? Amen, right? We all heard these are Steve Martin, any others?
Tom Hanks, Steve Martin, go down the
list.
Right?
Jules, that was a big one. My roommate in college, his dad's friend baptized Jewel. Yeah, so
that was Eli's last line in the column.
Yeah, actually, it was. I referenced Jewel in it. Yeah, and so. And then I when I became an adult and I left the church, I started hanging out with a lot of people who had also left the church, and I would hear people spread rumors about actual church members and say, I heard that they don't go to church anymore. And there was also false, everybody's just lying all the time. And so suddenly I go from, I heard Steve Martin is Mormon as a child to an adult. Well, I heard Donnie Osmond, he doesn't go to church anymore. And I heard that Marie Osmond is at the pub every night, and one of my child is throwing stuff onto the stage. One of the references that I made was that I said one day I was at a party and somebody said, I heard Mitt Romney hasn't gone to church since 2005. And I say in the column, these are untrue rumors, and I just realized everybody's just kind of making up stuff about celebrities to make themselves feel better about what choice they're making. That's just kind of human nature, inside Utah, outside of Utah, everywhere. I think people do this. Well, I write that column, and I didn't even think it was that good. And and I wake up on Monday morning. I didn't even know that it had been published. And I wake up on Monday morning to an email from Dave and a text from Peggy, and they are like, Mitt Romney is irate. And I go, lo and behold, I go to Twitter, and Mitt Romney is ranting on Twitter about this, quote, poorly sourced article in the
That's certainly true. There was no source.
It was accurate. So he said the poorly sourced article in the Tribune suggested that I am not a man of faith, and I am a man of faith. For his testimony. And then the funniest part, which I didn't even realize how funny this was until 2 days later, the funniest part was at the end, he said, and if you would like to meet with missionaries, many of whom are my grandchildren, let me know. And I will make an arrangement. And it was 2 days later that I was like, so wait, are we supposed to call Mitt Romney? Is that a real offer? Is he going to set me up with the missionaries now? And so it was so obvious that this man had not read the column, and that somebody had told him maybe or sent him a screenshot of just that one line that says, I heard Mitt Romney hasn't gone to church. Because he's an intelligent man, and if he had read the column, surely he would have seen that that's not at all what was being reported in the newspaper of record. And anyway, Peggy called his office, or I don't know how you get a hold of Mitt Romney. Maybe she's meeting with the missionaries right now. That's Peggy.
Mitt does take our calls. Mike Lee doesn't. Yes.
Okay, there we go. Tracks. So Peggy called him and. Said, it appears you misunderstood this article, and then he later got back to the Tribune, and to his credit, said, made a joke about himself and said, satire 1, me 0. So, but it made international news. There is hilariously, in the Daily Mail, you can Google it, fact check me on this, in a way that I don't fact check my own columns. You can Google this. There is an article in the Daily Mail about this feud, and the picture, have you seen this? On the top of the column, it's a side-by-side of me and Mitt Romney with the Salt Lake Temple superimposed between us. I need to frame that.
Daily Mail spares no expense. That's right. So we're grateful because it got us another story that got page views. So,
okay, yeah.
So, okay, you talked about resigning from the church. This is the story I'd like you to tell. Tell about the day you resigned from the church and the interaction you had with this bishop, which was awkward but somehow seemed appropriate.
It was bizarre. So I had, I had stopped going to church a long time ago, and had looming over me, do I actually go through the process that I say, sorry, Mom and Dad, don't be offended. Do I need to go through corporate to cancel my relationship with God? That's how I phrased it. And so I had, kind of thought about, do I get my records removed? And I went back and forth on this for a long time. And finally, I just decided, I think I need to do this. And what kind of prompted this was the bishop of my parents' ward, who I guess my records ended up in their ward, kept emailing me just on the mass email list to the ward, and would send out messages, and I would respond and say, hey, can you remove me from this? I don't want to receive these. And nobody ever removed me because I think it's just disorganization, And so finally one day I just got so fed up with it that I emailed him and I said, should I just get my records removed so that you will stop emailing me? It was a very impolite email. I'm so sorry. And the guy was very nice about it, and he said, yes, if you want to meet up with me, I can have you sign a letter and I can take care of it. And so I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll come to your house. And so one evening I went to visit my parents, and then I decided I was just going to run to his house after. And I pull up, and I never met this man, did not know this man. And I pull up to his house, and I was like, this is such a bizarre thing that I'm walking into, right? Walking into some stranger's house to sign a letter so that my name gets off the rolls at this church. And I walk in, he invites me in, and I can tell he's very nervous, and he didn't, my impolite email, he didn't know how rude I was going to be in person, but I'm very polite in person. And so I walk in, and we sit down, and we make small talk for 25 minutes, and which was a long time to make small talk, and I was just like, why are we talking? And I can hear his family in the other room all whispering, because surely he had told them what was happening. He was like, I don't know how awkward this is going to be, but somebody I don't know is coming here and he might be mad. And and I can hear his family in the other room I don't know, they're still just talking, And so finally, after 25 minutes of small talk where I'm just like, what are we doing here? The guy finally said to me, did you bring the letter to give me? And I realized in that moment he's waiting for me to do something, and I'm waiting for him to do something. And so I said, oh, I thought you had a form for me to sign. I didn't bring anything. And he was like, oh, let me go get my laptop. I'll just have you type up something. So he goes and gets his laptop, and he hands it to me, and I can hear his family Dad, yeah, he didn't bring his letter. Dad doesn't get his laptop. Yeah, and so he hands me the laptop, and as he hands it to me, I realize I have no idea what the letter's supposed to say. I've never written one of these before. And so I asked the guy, the bishop, I said, do you know what I'm supposed to say? And he was like, oh, I actually have never done this before either. And so he's like, let me look up. And so he's now Googling anti-Mormon websites and find out how to resign from the church. And I say, the poor guy, I hope he gets paid enough. So I start typing because I'm just like, well, I'll take a crack at it while he's doing his research. And the most formal religious language that I have buried somewhere deep down just started pouring out of me.
And it came to pass.
High on a mountaintop, dearest the church, I hereby relinquish unto you forevermore my everlasting covenants. And I'm like, what is happening? And it's like I was possessed. And I show him, and I'm like, will this work? And he looked at it, and he's just so puzzled, and he's like, yeah, I think they'll get the point. And so he's like, okay, I'll go print it. So he leaves the room, and the family's yelling, he's printing it. I don't know, it sounded like a weird letter. He comes back in, and he hands me the letter, and I say, do you have like a book or something that I can sign it on? And he said, sure. And he reaches over to the side table, and I just see his hand go on the side table, and he freezes. And I look over, and I look at him, and his face, it's like his brain has rebooted. And I follow his arm down to the hand, and his hand is resting on the largest copy of the Book of Mormon I have ever seen in my life. I didn't even know they made them that big. And he looks at me, and I can see him processing like, oh, this guy sent me that impolite email about sending him messages. He probably doesn't want me to hand him a Book of Mormon right now, and this probably is an appropriate table for his resignation letter anyway, you know. And I saw it, and it just all seemed so poetic to me in that moment. And I was just like, this is the book that started it all. And like, might as well be it. And so I said to him, actually, that's perfect. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah, that's perfect for me. Like, it's so poetic. And he laughed. And so he's like, okay. So he handed me the book. And as I started signing, we both just started laughing because it just was so funny to us in that moment that this is and the awkwardness just kind of wore off of us, and I could hear his family laughing, and it was just it was the most joyful resignation that's ever happened in a bishop's living room of all places. And so I left, and I realized as I walked out of there, it was kind of a joyful experience, and it was so consistent with all of my experiences with Mormonism throughout my life, my key experiences with Mormonism, which is conflicted, sometimes awkward, sometimes confusing, but it nonetheless surrounded by a community that I love despite itself. My mother would like to participate now.
Yeah, this is open mic. It's what we call fastened testimony. So what I want to say is that Eli is talking about, a brand new bishop who was trying his hardest to be efficient and kind and loving. He loves Eli. That's all we hear from him all the time. And he has met Skylar, and he loves Skylar. And we appreciated him so much in helping you on with your goal that day.
My goal.
Exactly, a goal for cross it off your list on your young men list. Yes, whatever. So, it's a lay church, as we know. Okay, and so it comes through sometimes.
Yeah.
And you see that. Okay, as a gay person, the
I
church,
am?
yeah, or you are, you freely acknowledge the pain the church and some of its teachings have caused you. How are you, however, able to retain a soft spot for the people, much of the culture?
Well, it's because of my family. That my family has been nothing but supportive and wonderful to me throughout my life. And there's never been a pause in that on any level. I have a lot of friends who are gay, came out, grew up LDS, who have a very different feeling about the church and the community. And I get it. I don't fault anybody for having anger or difficulty with their family members or the community around them. If your experience is negative, it's really hard to have a positive view. I like to tell, sometimes I'll see families and parents in particular that respond very poorly when their kid comes out, and I just think, man, they're making this so much worse for themselves, actually. Because their kid isn't going to not be gay as a result of this, but their kid is going to probably resent them and the faith that they don't want their kid to resent. I have my issues, but all in all, because my parents are so kind and supportive of me, it's much, much easier for me to see the good in Mormonism.
So tell us how your life has changed since West arrived in the family.
No difference. Yeah,
So Skylar's doing all the work.
Even he's shaking his head. Skylar's great. West is a year and a half old. We won the baby lottery. Somehow this kid is a very easy baby. It's not because of anything we've done. We are terrible at keeping a schedule. This baby almost basically doesn't have a bedtime. He just kind of like takes care of himself. Sometimes he takes care of us. It's been wild. And I told you, Dave, recently, it was so interesting putting this book together because I initially had to go through all of the columns in order of how they were published. And then we reorganized them to be kind of more chronologically in order of my life stories. And I didn't even notice this was happening, but since West was born, my columns immediately got so much sappier, and they were a lot more sarcastic before. It was sort of this like print evidence in a newspaper that like, oh, parenthood has softened me in a way I didn't even know was happening. Yeah.
So we'll have to get that harder edge back.
Yeah.
It'll happen with 2 kids. Okay, so tell us, what does writing do for you? Because it's work. Anyone who thinks writing is not work doesn't write. Mm-hmm. What does it do for you?
In the case of the Tribune and this book, it really helps me process my experiences and what it is that I'm supposed to learn from them. There will be times where I'm inclined to write a story because I think it'll be funny to write. And by the time I get to the end of it, I realize that there's this lesson that I learned from it that I didn't even realize I had learned from it. And so that it does that for me. It's also, it's therapeutic, it's gratifying. I enjoy the writing process. I enjoy storytelling. And at the end of the day, I cannot believe, and I'm so grateful for this, that I have so far 3.5 years worth of my family stories preserved in a newspaper. It feels, on some level, I feel selfish. And I've told you that sometimes I send in my columns and it feels so self-absorbed that I'm like, here, Dave, here's another story about me for the newspaper. And maybe it comes across that way to some people, and I totally understand if it does, but I'm just so grateful that I have that.
And so are we. Glad to have you. I asked you this on the Mormon podcast. Who's funnier, you or Skylar at home?
It's me.
Who's funnier?
He's out of the room. It's me.
Tell us what you really think.
No, what I'll say, Skylar is much sillier. Would you guys all agree with that? They probably would. My family would all probably say Skylar's funnier than me, but the man cannot tell a story. So save his life. So he's good at punchlines, but yeah.
Okay, we want to open up now. Shirley has some questions for you.
It's okay.
Be bold, be brave.
Oh.
Who's your favorite sister?
It's one of my sisters. I'm not going to answer that. But I will say, my siblings and I have a joke in our family. It's not really a joke. Our parents love us all equally, but they like us on very different levels. And we know the order. All 4 of us. My oldest sister, Rochelle, is their favorite child. And when we all know that to be true, and when we bring it up to her, she's like, no, I'm sure they love us all. It's all the same.
Does everyone agree with this order?
It would be our parents get really cagey when we bring it up to them. They won't deny it, but they're just like, oh, you kids.
She's the boss sister.
Question up there.
Yeah, Eli, you said the other day something about doing an Audible book, and I think you read it yourself.
Yeah.
And that was quite the challenge and pain. You seem like such a natural to read your own book. Could you explain why that was the experience that was?
Yes, thank you. Judge Orm from the Court of Appeals. I clerked for Judge Orm right out of law school. Thank you for being here.
And what else did I do?
He officiated our wedding. Thank you. I was like, did you do anything else? Yeah, so I recorded this book. It's on Audible. Maybe some of you have heard it. I was really excited to record it. And years ago, I heard that the Obamas, I think it was the Obamas, won a Grammy for their audiobook. And at the time, I was like, okay. That's not you can't win a real Grammy for reading your book out loud, surely, And now I better win a Grammy for this. It was really fun to record it. And I do think I was the right person to record it because it's my voice, these are my stories. But I didn't realize that when you record an audiobook, you are making an artistic choice with every syllable that you say for hours on end. And I would record part of it and then listen back and be like, I sound dead. I didn't even realize that I sounded that way. Or like that joke did not land. And it was really challenging. It was all in all, it was a fun experience, but I did come out of that and have a newfound respect for the art of recording audiobooks. That's for sure.
I haven't heard that. You didn't sneak in any swear words there.
No.
Okay.
Well, I did, but they edited. No, truly, because it would be the poor editor John at Signature Books who edited the whole thing. It would be me reading a sentence, messing up, swearing loudly, and then saying, sorry, John. So the version that he listened to was R-rated, but the version you all get is very PG. So
every writer does that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My whole wedding is here. Pam did our flowers, so.
If I was to recommend one story in the book to someone who hadn't read your work at all, what would be one that would be exemplary of your?
Well, I think, and maybe when we're done with the Q&A, we can end with a reading of a column, and I'll read the one that I think I would recommend that is appropriate for all audiences, whether you're familiar with the culture or not.
Is that a Halloween one?
Yes.
Okay. I'll recommend one there too. Read the one about Skyler and his speed bump. Read that one. I know it sounds weird. You gotta see the picture too. So, okay, other questions? Yeah.
So, as you're raising Wes, obviously there's a lot of parts of your childhood in your religious context that you really value. Are there ways that you've thought about how you want to bring the core of that in a different spiritual framing?
It's interesting, and I don't know how to answer that from like a kind of a spiritual aspect. This is something that I'm thinking about all the time. The biggest thing for me and the most value that I think I got from an LDS upbringing is a sense of community. And I really do. I mean, obviously you can have a sense of community with or without Mormonism, but I think Mormonism really highlighted what community can be for each other. And that is the most important thing that I want to make sure I can find ways to introduce into his life. That you belong to a community, you have responsibilities for that community, and if you fulfill those responsibilities, it will bless your life in many ways.
Yeah.
Oh, what's been your favorite experience being an A-list TikTok celebrity?
So for those who might not be aware, I am an aspiring ultra A-list TikTok celebrity. So what happened was about 6 months ago or 7 months ago, I realized that I have this book coming out and then I have a novel coming out in September of this year. And I was like, oh, next year I have 2 books that I need to be promoting. Maybe I should start posting on TikTok to see if I can use that because book talk is a thing and people promote books there. And so I started, but I didn't want to edit videos because I'm too lazy for that. And so I just opened the camera and just started sharing stories. Some of the stories and pieces of stories that I've written about in the newspaper. And very sarcastically and said, please help me in my dream. I'm trying to become an A-list TikTok celebrity because I want to promote some books next year. And that has been really, really fun. And so to answer your question, my favorite experience of doing it was I posted a video on TikTok 5-6 months ago where I ranted, or I told this story about how Skyler every Saturday would disappear for hours on end and he wouldn't tell me what he was doing. And I'd be like, what are you up to on Saturdays? Whatever. And he's like, it's nothing, don't worry about it. He's really cagey. And this went on for a while. And finally one day, I was just like, you just need to tell me. Are you having an affair? What is happening? And he said, okay, every Saturday morning, I get online with my friends and I play Dungeons and Dragons. And I said, I wish you were having an affair. So I post this video, and Newsweek picks it up and writes a full article about my video about this thing. But their headline, first of all, the picture is like a terrible screenshot of me talking, and I look angry. And the headline is something like, man thinks his husband is having an affair, but what he finds out is much worse. And I was like, what? And so I posted about that, and I was like, this feels like a Lifetime movie now at this point. And then Lifetime, the official account, responded and said, we'll buy the rights.
Wait to see what the Daily Mail does with it. Others? Yeah.
That reminded me of one of my favorite things that I really want you to write about. The fountain. Skylar played in the fountain and I died.
Oh my goodness. Briefly, thank you. I'm gonna write this down.
That is
Last summer, Skylar was disappearing with our child every evening to go on walks, and then they would come home and our baby was soaking wet. And I'm like, what happened? And Skylar said, well, we've been playing at the splash pad. And I was like, what splash pad? And he's like, it's over on 2100 South, whatever. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've never seen a splash pad over there. So finally one night, he's like, we're gonna go for a walk. Do you want to come with us? We're gonna go to that splash pad again and play because Wes loves it. And I said, well, I'm finishing up some work. I'll just come meet you there. Tell me exactly where it is. So he tells me, and so I go walk over there, and I get there. It's on 2100 South, and they come into view. And this man is not playing in a splash pad. It's just like a public fountain. And Skylar and my child are like next to the busy street playing in a public fountain by themselves. People are like walking by like, what is that guy doing? So that had been happening for a while.
D&D doesn't look so bad now, does it? Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
Dave mentioned that you still have a soft spot for Mormons. Do you have any friends that are still active Mormon?
Oh, many, and some of them are here. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I lost any friends from coming out. Yeah.
They'll have choose the left ring. So okay. Others? Yeah. Oh, yeah, back there.
First of all, how dare you?
I told Shelby to ask that question.
I said, do you want me to ask anything specifically? But I did want to ask how, when you're in your process, your writing process, how often does something happen and you're immediately like, oh, that's a column, or that's this during your bill, or something? And how often is it, you have to think about it and try to come up with something?
That happens much less often with the column, where I'm more dipping back into my memory to write stories from childhood and so forth. When it comes to writing on my website or posting on social media, it happens a lot. And I do have to, I try to tamp down that impulse a little bit because I don't want to content farm every aspect of my life. I don't think it's healthy when people do that. But when you're writing stories regularly, your brain just kind of naturally starts looking for the story and how would I write this if I was going to write it. Yeah.
Can I ask you one serious question?
Mm-hmm.
You served a Mormon mission to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Ukraine.
It's been
How's it feel?
Yeah, it's been a tough few years to be somebody who has friends over there. I mean, it's depressing to watch whether or not you have friends over there. It's been really interesting. I communicate with a lot of friends that I have over there. In fact, as recently as this morning, I was messaging with one who was near one of the attacks from yesterday, and it's hard. It's heavy. It's hard to see. I mean, I don't even know how to talk about this like globally, but it's a beautiful country and full of really wonderful people that I miss very, very much.
You did write a fun column about translating for General Conference in Ukraine.
It was terrible at it. They fired me.
and talk about what happened. You got lost, and it's what you said to them.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I had gotten back from Ukraine relatively recently, and I had been somehow hired to do translation services for a General Conference. And my Ukrainian was good, but not good enough for that on the fly. And so I did that. And the way it works, and I think it probably still works this way, but the way it worked back then 20 plus years ago was they would give you the talk written out in advance. And so you could kind of practice, and it was helpful. But sometimes speakers would go off topic, and they're old. And I didn't actually say this in the column, but it was Monson. Thomas Monson was giving a talk, and I just got so completely flustered and was just I couldn't catch up or whatever. And so I say in the column that it does make me smile to know that before I got fired, I was able to do this because it means that there's a video out there somewhere in Ukraine where an old man is standing up talking, and then the interpreter goes silent for a minute and then comes in rusty Ukrainian and says, "Sorry, everyone, I lost my place, but I miss you terribly."
The Eli touch. Okay, other questions? Yeah.
You're really a prolific writer, and so I'm curious, how do you keep track of all your stories, and how do you choose what story to write about?
Well, I probably don't keep track well enough. Every once in a while, I'll post something on like TikTok, and somebody will be like, "You've already told this one." Probably sleep deprived when I did that.
Someone talking back on social media?
Yeah, I believe it. Andy, here's the answer I'll give you on that. I have zero ability to remember what people or things look like. I can't do it. My memory is terrible. I can't. If you asked me right now to describe the decor in my kitchen, I couldn't do it. And I've lived there for 10 years, and I picked it. I have a really hard time recognizing faces out of context. This is really bad. And I think that what that means is that whatever capacity of my brain that would have been used for that is used on remembering conversations and stories. And so one of the biggest blessings for me as somebody who likes to write personal stories is I have a really, really good memory for stories. So I don't know if that's an answer for you, but I was just born this way, baby.
Which writers do you like to read?
I love David Sedaris.
Oh, yes.
I'll read anything he writes. I'm going to plug my friend Meg Walter. She's up there. Meg is my creative partner. We do how many podcasts together? 35? 19 podcasts together. One day, Meg said, "I have like 3 podcasts. I'm basically a white dude." Meg writes a humor column for the Deseret News and is one of my favorite writers. Rebby Brassfield, who is a humor columnist for the Salt Lake Tribune as well, is one of the most thoughtful writers in this space of anybody I know. So those are some of my favorites.
Do you have any advice for aspiring writers who want to start a personal column? Do you recommend turning everything into a moral or a lesson or having a punchline?
No, I recommend doing what feels natural for you. And my biggest advice is to write every single day. Writing is a muscle. It really is. And if you are writing every day, you will get better at it and you will become so much faster at it. And if you pause, it's harder to pick back up. I had, when I finished my clerkships, I got a job at a big law firm. And on my very first week, I had a friend at this law firm who knew me and knew that I loved to write. And she came to my office and she said, "You're going to be very busy for the next few years because this is a really intense job. And you're going to be tempted to put your creative projects on the back burner. And I am going to tell you that part of your brain will atrophy so much faster than you realize. And so I know that writing is really important to you. And so my biggest advice for you as you enter this new career is to make sure you make time for that no matter how busy and overwhelmed you feel." And it was one of the best pieces of writing advice I've ever gotten from somebody who's not even a writer.
Journalism's a great place for that, by the way.
Yeah.
You have to write every day. Yeah.
I heard that there was some pushback on the title. And so, because I'm friends with Barbara.
Okay.
And anyway, and she was saying, oh, I did not want him to name it this book. And he insisted, so I want to hear about that.
The brutal. Do I have a Signature Books representative in here? Can I provide a counter here? So I told Signature Books, fantastic publisher by the way. I told them at the beginning. I said I already know the name for this book. It came to me and I know what it's supposed to be called, and it's We're Thankful for the Moisture. And they all just stared at me blankly. And Barbara said, you want the word moisture in your title? and so for a while I was like, okay, maybe you're right, you know. And we kept coming up with other titles, but every time we did, I just kept thinking, no, this is the right title for this book. And I'll tell you all, the reason why I think it's the right title for the book is there are many reasons for it. One is it's just a hilarious phrase, and I write about it in the first essay of the book. But also it really captures the vibe and the message of the book, I think, which is, we're thankful for the moisture is a phrase that we say that is quirky and it's funny and it's weird, but we our community utters it very sincerely. And our community utters it to express gratitude for a thing that is not always easy to express gratitude for, which is bad weather. And to me, that's how I feel about the culture that is Mormonism. It's messy, it's quirky, it's weird, it's odd. Sometimes it's hard to be grateful for, but at the end of the day, I'm still somehow thankful for it. Maybe you take like one or two more questions and I'll do a reading.
I'm sure Signature demanded the subtitle, right?
Yeah, that was the compromise, and I was perfectly happy with the subtitle.
Others over here, yeah.
I really love the grace that you're able to extend to the Mormon Church and its members. Did you ever have a time where you were angry and weren't able to be in that space? And if so, how did you get to where you are now?
Not extremely, but here and there, and still sometimes, but less now than maybe 10 years ago. The biggest thing was marrying Skylar. That helped me process a lot of this. I write about it in the book. My mom one day wrote a birthday card for Skylar, and she said, oh, I'm gonna cry, I know. And I was gonna make it this whole time about it. And she wrote in the birthday card, we're so grateful to have you in our forever family, and she underlined forever. And I read it over his shoulder, and my impulse was like, Mom and Dad, put religion into everything, that was... And Skylar got immediately touched, and he was like, this is such a beautiful sentiment to communicate to somebody. And it was experience like that over and over again that really got me to realize, you know what, I don't want to live my life in anger. It's not a fun way to live. It ages you very fast. I want my skin to look radiant. And I don't want to live that way, and there is an avenue here for me to not live that way, and it's an attitude adjustment, and Skylar is giving me the example of how that works.
I saw one more over here.
How do you build community now that you don't have it kind of pre-made for you in the church?
Now I'm just tearing community down. Well, on a kind of larger level, writing this column is community building for me. That's something that I do specifically. But Skylar and I have made it a really important effort to get to know our neighbors. We live in Sugar House. It's not a really, I don't think there are any Latter-day Saints even on our street. So it takes some extra effort for us than it would if we were going to church with these people each week. But it has turned out that neighbors generally do actually like it when you knock on their door and say, hey, I live on the street and I just wanted to meet you and get to know you a little bit. Okay. Can I read you an essay and then, thank you so much for that. And then we pre-sign books. If you picked one up, you get out of here whenever you want. But after I read this, I'm going to go sit out at that table if anybody wants me to sign a copy you brought, or if you got a pre-signed copy and you want me to write a love message to you in it, you could come and find me after, and I'm happy to do that as well.
And I'm sincere in this. I wrote on the back of the book,
please buy the book. We don't pay him very much. Okay? And I'll feel a lot less guilty if you do. So, confirmed. 19 cents a year. Okay, so this is maybe the essay, Pam, to your question that I would recommend to people. It's called Singing Nuns. And it's about my childhood best friend who so badly wanted to be here, but he lives in Chicago and has a baby himself. So, my childhood best friend was a boy named Sam. We met when we were 9 and discovered we had compatible imaginations that didn't seem to match those of our peers. We'd make up games. The rules were not consistent and the points didn't matter. Most of the games involved various reenactments of some primetime television series geared toward adults, which we nonetheless watched. We'd pretend to be superheroes on the playground, but not in the way of most of our contemporaries. This was the mid-1990s, and the popular soap-adjacent series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, was airing on Sunday evenings. Instead of imagining we could fly, Sam and I would reenact dramatic dialogue-heavy scenes between Clark Kent and Lois Lane. We always fought over who got to play Lois. By far, our favorite role involved the sound of music, wherein we, I'm sure to the silent objection of our family members, sang in hyperbolic operatic voices, "How do you solve a problem like Maria?" But we altered the lyrics to include at least a touch of potty humor. It was around this time that one or both of us had the idea that we should dress up as nuns for Halloween. We presented this plan to our fatigued mothers who didn't have internet access or any other reasonable way to procure a costume that no other 9-year-old boy in 1995 had thought to request. "Are you sure you don't want to be, a skeleton or a ghost?" they pleaded with us. Nevertheless, we begged. Yes, we begged our Latter-day Saint mothers to turn us into nuns. Sam's mom cornered my mom that Sunday in the church foyer. "Do you have any idea how to make a nun costume?" she whispered. "I've sketched out some models," my mom told her, "but I don't know. Maybe we can brainstorm and figure this out together." Over the next few weeks, I'd peek my head into my mother's sewing room to find her hunched over her Singer machine, running a black piece of fabric under the pulsating needle. Piles of temporarily abandoned projects were scattered about this woman who certainly never expected her decades of exceptional crafting experience to be channeled toward turning her 9-year-old son into a holy drag queen for all our South Jordan neighborhood to enjoy. Finally, sometime around the end of October, Sam called. "Is your nun outfit ready?" He sounded giddy. "It's perfect," I told him, standing in my habit at the exact moment that my mother, on her knees and with a number of pins sticking out of her mouth, adjusted the hem in meticulous professionalism, taking this as seriously as if this gown would soon be on exhibit at the Met. Our school invited us to wear our costumes to class on Halloween. Princesses, superheroes, ghosts, and ninjas walked among us as Sam and I tucked our hands into our tunics and marched in solemn character, elated to finally be living this dream. We didn't view our evening of trick-or-treating as a quest to collect candy, but rather a fulfillment of our civic duty to perform, to entertain, to dazzle. With the recent popularity of Whoopi Goldberg's Sister Act to add to what Julie Andrews had already given us, we had enough music in our repertoire to fill out an entire album. We marched from home to home, performing each tune straight-faced and with excessive vibrato before accepting any confectionery offering from the homeowner. Before long, neighbors began calling other neighbors to let them know Eli and Sam, the singing nuns, were on their way, and to be sure to make time for us. By evening's end, our reputations had so preceded us that entire families were answering their doors to give us a proper audience. Our parents had received phone calls throughout the evening, neighbors giving their enthusiastic reviews and asking whether there was any way the show could get an extended run. We couldn't have been prouder of ourselves. The spectacle was such a hit, we reprised our roles the following Halloween for our last year of trick-or-treating before puberty could begin to rob us of the innocence and self-confidence of childhood. The next reveal may shock you. Sam and I both came out as gay in our 20s. Long after the habits no longer fit, long after we retired our drag queen careers. Shortly after we came out, I was talking to Sam's mom about our nunning days, and I facetiously asked her if she was surprised we both turned out to be raging homosexuals. She looked at me with such care, tilted her head slightly, and mumbled, "There were signs." I'm not done. I'm not done. There were signs. We couldn't disagree. And considering those signs, there's a piece of me that is baffled and even a little proud that in our conservative 1995 Utah town, our mother's only hesitation in turning us into nuns was that they didn't know if they were up to the textile task. That our classmates didn't bully us, but instead asked us where we got our cool hats. That neighborhood moms and dads didn't merely accept our flamboyance, but shepherded us up and down our streets with glee, never demanding we stop, but instead requesting an encore. Oh God, I'm such a baby. It's because I became a dad. In 2024, Sam and I both became dads within just a few weeks of each other. We now live in different states, but have remained as close as brothers in the 30 years since we donned our gay apparel that 1999. Shortly after the birth of our sons, Sam and his husband Travis came to Salt Lake City to visit Sam's family and show off their infant. While they were in town, we took an evening to introduce our newborns to each other, even though at that point they were still essentially potatoes. "Do you think they'll grow up to be best friends?" one of us asked. "Do you think they'll have our odd imaginations? Do you think they'll one day ask us to figure out how to turn them into nuns for Halloween?" I don't know the answers to those questions, but sitting there looking at our sons, I couldn't help but think the response to each might be yes, if we're lucky. There's a picture of us as nuns in the book.
Eli McCann, again, thank you so much.